We are now joined by Jon Wilner. There's our dude on the West Coast. The WilnerHotline joins us. Paul Catalina, David Smoke, and Craig Smoke, 365 Sports. Thank you, sir. You look like you're like an old fisherman right now, like you're going on a pier to go find whatever you would find.
Yeah, well, I need a haircut. I had planned to get a haircut yesterday, in fact, and then Stanford fired its coach.
Yeah. How selfish of them, right?
Always happens. It's a long year for us folks who cover college football and basketball. It never ends. We're getting to the end here, and I hope to get out of my fisherman's gear and get back to normal life in, 3 or 4 weeks.
Jon, is this a situation where they have to go interim, or do you hire your full-time coach right now? I mean, look, given all the tumultuous nature that Stanford has been through academically, leadership-wise, and everything the last couple of years, notwithstanding, they're still Stanford. I mean, they still can do, like, if they just decided to do something, there's nothing stopping them. No one's in their way from doing whatever they want.
That is true. Stanford and BYU could rule the world if they wanted, because it's all about resources. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what they're going to do. Andrew Luck is in charge of this. There's no athletic director right now. He stepped down a month ago. They haven't even appointed an interim. Luck is in charge of football. They could hire a full-time coach in the next few weeks, not ideal time, where they could appoint an acting coach, that gets them through the season. A little bit like what Northwestern did with David Braun when Fitzgerald got fired, 2 years ago in the summer? And I think that's actually, it could be a smart move for them, because Stanford has got to figure out what do they want to do in the revenue sharing era in terms of allocation for football versus all their Olympic sports. How do they want to deal with the transfer portal? They can't survive on only taking graduate transfers from the Ivy League. So they got a lot of institutional issues that they need to figure out. And the answers will help dictate the quality of their candidate pool. So I think they might be better off waiting 9 months and evaluating the landscape before they make a move.
Jon, when did it start to kind of come to your attention that this Troy Taylor experiment was starting to get off to, get off road a little bit and not in line, obviously, with your traditional head coach and his responsibilities and his behaviors?
Well, I mean, I didn't know about the investigation until the ESPN report, but there were a lot of signs that things weren't going well. In addition to the back-to-back 3-9 records, they brought Luck in at the end of November and gave him authority. He was Taylor's boss and reported directly to the university president. So he essentially had more authority than either the head coach or the athletic director. So that was a big sign that the AD was getting marginalized, and also that Troy Taylor, that his days could be numbered if they didn't get things turned around. I do not know at what point in the onboarding process Luck found out about the investigations, but clearly they were okay with Taylor being the head coach in 2025 until ESPN broke the story. And then it looked, the public embarrassment made them reverse course.
So you mentioned the possibilities of what they do, interim or whatever. We had, who was it yesterday that we had on to talk about? What about Jason Garrett?
Interesting name. The Princeton background certainly would go over well with Stanford's Board of Trustees. Mm-hmm. Has he I don't even know if he's coached in college. At least he hasn't in a long time. And
The
I
closest
don't
he's
know.
been to college is the fact that he does Notre Dame games, I think, is about it.
Yeah, and he's not very good on air, I got to tell you. I'm not sure about that one. I don't think Stanford can afford to swing and miss with somebody who doesn't understand the landscape. The first person I thought of for an acting coach was Mike Bloomgren, the former Rice coach, who was the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach during Luck's senior year. And when Bloomgren left for Rice, that was one of the things that sent Stanford on a long, slow burn. But he just took a job with the Browns, so I don't know that he's available to be, an acting coach.
John, is this given the things that have happened away from the sports arena, the president situation, which was a huge deal. And then again, you mentioned they don't have an athletic director. Does it make it less attractive than it would be in any other regard? That and the fact that most people who may be attracted to the Stanford job just 2 years ago are like, do I really want to play 15 of my 16 conference opponents 2 time zones or more away?
The ACC thing is a challenge. And so is not just the travel, but the revenue issue, right? Now that the ACC, first Stanford and Cal were already getting 30% revenue shares for the next 7 years. And now they've got the brand deal where your TV viewership will help determine how much revenue you get. Stanford and Cal probably not going to be the highest rated game. So they have a lot working against them just with the ACC distributions. And then you throw in the travel and you throw in all the institutional challenges with the transfer portal, NIL. They were late to the NIL game, back-to-back 3-9s. It's not a good situation, but there's a ton of potential. First of all, you're taking over. There's almost nowhere to go but up. There's not a lot of pressure to win immediately. And it's got a time. I mean, they can do whatever they want to do. It is just a matter of willpower. They have got a $10 billion university budget. They've got billions in endowment that is not allocated for scholarships. They can do whatever they want. So they do have a president who does seem to recognize that football is important and that this is a tipping point for not only Stanford and Cal, but a lot of schools across the country. The next 5 years are basically an audition either to get in a Super League or to get in the Big Ten and the SEC in the 2030s. So with a president who cares about football, I think that makes it a little bit more of an attractive job than it might look like.
Plunkett, John Elway, Bill Walsh, obviously Christian McCaffrey. You got Jim Harbaugh. There's a history there. Now, it's not like Notre Dame, but they've always played a hell of a schedule.
Yep.
Is there enough interest from the past, from alums and former players, et cetera, to get this thing done?
I think so. I just don't know how much influence they really have in the athletic department machinations.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a mystery because they don't have an AD. The athletic director who stepped down, Bernard Muir, was not, my understanding is he wasn't super close to the alums. But there is certainly a huge support system for Stanford football and Stanford athletics generally, not only financially, but just in terms of the clout that a lot of these people have. So we'll see. It could become a great job. They could win like they did or close to what they did 15 years ago if they find a new Jim Harbaugh. The challenges are different now, but it's mostly just institutional willpower.
Jon Wilner, the Wilner Hotline, with us on 365 Sports the day after Stanford has taken care of their football coach.
Where is the athletic fan base with their fervor right now? I mean, if you watch home games last year, they weren't excited. I mean, it wasn't packed full, but they have this great athletics history, but it doesn't seem like it's translating now to the current student body.
No. Part of their problem is they're a quarter school, so often they play 2 or 3 home games when the students aren't even there. But generally speaking, the stadium has been empty for years. Late after they had McCaffrey and then Bryce Love, things went downhill quickly, and there's tens of thousands of empty seats. But it was 10 years ago, they were selling the place out, and they were a hot story. You know, they were top 10 on a regular basis, 3 Rose Bowls. So if they get back to that, I think they've got a good chance to fill it. But they've got to win, and they got to win consistently. And again, the cost of not winning in the next few years for a lot of schools that are not in the Big Ten or SEC is critical. You can't afford to flounder between now and 2030.
No, you can't. You better be set up. I mean, even schools that are not a part of it, like, for example, USF, we had Alex Golish on Monday. They're building a new stadium. They're trying to, hey, look at us, right? Look at us. And they got to win. They're playing a hard schedule. We've been doing this, going day by day with certain schedules, not really getting too much into the X's and O's, and I know you got to go. North Carolina's schedule this year, they play at Cal.
Yep.
11 of their 12 games, John, are on the East Coast. Think about that. And, of course, that's part of where the ACC is. They play at Syracuse, but they play 11 of their 12 games, and a chunk of them, of course, in their home state. And that's the challenge, Stanford and Cal and others. Man, that's hard to get over, in my opinion.
It is a huge challenge, but it's also a challenge for those schools in their Olympic sports and in basketball. I mean, you know, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA had a hard time in the Big Ten in basketball and football, right, traveling. We saw what happened to a lot of the schools on those 9 a.m. games, or 9 a.m. kickoffs. It is a difficult situation. I think it's more manageable for football than it is for the other sports, but it doesn't seem to me to be sustainable. And I don't know why the ACC schools have it set up pretty well. So for football, you know, they're not making multiple trips to the West Coast. But I don't know why they want this to continue for their Olympic sports long haul either. It doesn't make sense for anybody.
Thank you, man. I know you got to go. Thanks, John. Appreciate your knowledge.
Thanks, guys.
Jon Wilner, the Wilner Hotline on the Stanford opening and kind of the decisions behind it. And Andrew Luck right now basically with the full authority of whatever happens with the football program. Hired as a general manager.